Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the CMU Sport Management Podcast. This is episode 6, and joining me today is a current CMU student, CMU Sport Management student, Ava Denton. How are you doing today, Ava?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well. I want to thank you for joining me. The social media team reached out to the professors in the program and asked, what current students they think would be great to have on, and you were the first name that was brought up. So that's obviously that's
No.
awesome that we can have you on. Dr. Blue was the one that shouted you out. So shout out to Dr. Blue for giving that information to us. So the first thing I want to ask you is kind of how I start all of these with asking the people that come on is, what was, before you even came to CMU, before you even came to college, like what was the reason that you wanted, that sport management, I guess, was the reason you wanted to major in?
Well, growing up, obviously, I'm sure everybody says this. I played sports, youth sports, travel, high school. Um, but not only that, I've always been really invested in like professional and just watching all kinds of sports, especially basketball. I'm a big NBA follower, so I just, once I learned that there was more things than just either one being an athlete or two being a coach, that there was way more outside of that, and working in sports, I was like, oh, okay, I'll try this out.
Yeah, you're a LeBron fan, right? I feel like
Yeah,
we've bonded
big
on this
LeBron
before.
fan.
We had a class together. I remember that we
Mhm.
both had said that we were LeBron fans. So I'm happy that we're on that same page.
Yeah,
Um,
and, did you saw his, game last night?
I did. Yeah, that was
Yeah.
he's turning back the clock. Year
Mhm.
21. It's crazy.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, everyone that works in sport management, not everyone, but for the most part, I feel like is loved playing sports growing up, loved watching sports, and they kind of just want to continue that
Yep.
and working in sports into the future. So where are you currently at right now in the sport management program?
In terms of what year?
Yeah.
So, for the sport management undergrad program, I'm, taking 480 right now. So, technically,
Okay.
I would be consider myself a senior. And then I'm also a part of the accelerated master's program. So, it's my first year doing that as well. So, I'm in 602, 603, and 635.
Okay, yeah, that was actually something I was going to hit on next is that accelerated master's program. I know that is something that Dr. Blue obviously handles a lot with, and he mentions to students that want to get involved with it. How is that going, and what was kind of the process of getting involved with the accelerated master's program?
Well, so I'll start with getting into that. Obviously, this is the first year, first cohort, so we're kind of the guinea pigs. Um, Now, like joining it and getting your classes scheduled and all that kind of stuff, that was kind of a hassle just because there's still a lot of like kinks they need to work out. Basically because the system doesn't want you to start a new school if you haven't finished your degree, with a
I
credit.
see.
So, there's a lot of red flags when I was doing my scheduling, but I mean, it's so that's something that I can see people being like frustrated with when, trying to get into it. But after all that, starting it definitely different from undergrad in terms of workload and like expectations. The biggest thing like I've taken away so far is just it's a giant time management test.
Right.
It's and the thing is like when you're in this program, most people have a graduate assistantship, so they're working, they're supposed to be only working 20 hours, but they work 40, 50, 60 hours on top of the 3-hour classes that we do. Right now, our classes are Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday nights. So it's a lot. And it's kind of one of those things where each of those classes, they're considerate of, the other two, but it's like a full workload in each class. So, I mean, I like it a lot. One of my favorite things about it actually is, and I'm a pretty like personal, like relational person, and
Right.
you get really close with your cohort. So I think we've got 18, 19, 20 kids in our cohort, and I mean, we all get along really well. We hang out outside of class, and doing that, like, it builds that trust within each other. So that way, when you're working on group projects, because obviously almost everything is group project based, you trust them more, and you can rely on them, and you understand what work they're going to bring. So that's super cool that I enjoy about it.
So how long is that program going to, like, you're going to be in that for?
So it's a 2-year program,
Okay.
but the like bonus of it is like basically, and so instead of you would be at CMU technically for 5 years instead of 6 years if you did it. Now, in my case, I was already a year ahead because of like high school credits I came in with.
Hmm.
So I'll be at CMU for 4 years total, but I'll finish with my undergrad and grad degree at the same time. So it's kind of cool.
That's something that most people can't say. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
really awesome. So
Yeah.
as far as like if students wanted to maybe current students that are in the undergrad program, if this was something that interested them, like how can they get involved and who could they reach out to maybe join that?
Yeah, actually, kind of a little advertisement here. I think in 2 weeks, our cohort is hosting a kind of a student recruitment little get together. We've created flyers that we're gonna pass out soon, but we're just kind of gonna gather everybody, eat some food, have some drinks, and play some games, just kind of socialize. And we're gonna kind of tell them about the program, and we don't want to sugarcoat things, but we also want them to not be so scared of it just because, it is getting your master's degree. But that, and just obviously contacting all the professors, because for those that don't know, all of the master professors are also the undergrad professors. So Dr. Mumford, Dr. Blue, Dr. Mackey, those are the ones that I have now. I think
Okay.
Jen is one, but yeah, just contacting those professors. And like I said, we're going to be sending out flyers soon to the professors so they can share with their classes as well.
So what are some types of things that you guys are currently doing in programs right now?
Yeah,
Sorry, I just had
so
something go off on my computer.
um so in Dr. Mackey's class, which is 602, that one is heavy in the beginning of the class. So like September, we organized a disc golf event. That was our job. It's a yearly thing, so people are aware of it, but we kind of split up in departments: marketing, sponsorships, operations, and media. So we all work together to recruit people, raise money, put on the event, and then in that class you also take just kind of quizzes from readings. And then that class is also, it's called service learning hour heavy, so it's like volunteer hours but strictly for events. And you have to get like youth events, women in sport events, university events, stuff like that. And then Dr. Blue's class is basically, I think, 218.
Hmm.
Basically the stats class. It's the first half. I would say the first half of the semester is the entire semester of 218, so it's just kind of crunched down a little more.
Okay.
And then we actually are starting the second half of it tonight. So that's basically, it's just sports statistics, and you do a big like research project similar to 218. And then 603, this is a very different class. It's with Dr. Mumford. And, if you have him in 480, he's not your traditional professor. He's very hands off. And basically, the class is, we are a sports corporation. Like, we're pretending like we are an organization.
Okay.
And I'm the vice president, and then Stuart Clark is the president. And him and I basically lead our class within departments, and we have to complete 21 tasks. So Dr. Mumford gives us these tasks, and some of them are simple, like go volunteer somewhere, and then others are like sell out an event. So right now we're actually working to sell out the CMU wrestling home
Okay.
opener.
Yeah, I saw that Stuart posted about that
Yep.
actually. So
Yeah, so that's next Thursday, November 9th. So that's something that we've put a lot of work into, and we're hoping to get a lot of people there.
yeah, I'll be working for multimedia at that game. So hopefully
Cool.
it is a packed crowd. So I'm really excited for that. So how has it been like trying to handle the workload of the master's program while also, still in your undergrad?
Yeah, I wouldn't say so. At first, like the first few weeks, I was like, "Oh my gosh, I didn't
Quite
doubt that I
overwhelmed.
couldn't." Yeah, I didn't doubt that I couldn't do it, but it was, for those who didn't work very hard in undergrad, it was probably a giant wake up call. Now, I've never like taken anything lightly, so I came into the program with a mindset that like this is going to be a lot. Um, but I wouldn't really necessarily say that my undergrad in the beginning has gotten in the way, just because I scheduled it nicely where I'm doing 480 this semester and then 564 next semester. So those are taken separately, which are,
Uh-huh.
I would highly recommend, just even if you're just doing your undergrad, don't take those two together. And then I still have one minor class, so it's with all 5 classes, it's not terrible, um, but honestly, like, even without, for those who are just in the regular, master's program, those 3 classes combined are just a workload in itself, but just it's one of those things where and I don't wanna say this because I don't want to, discourage people, but you kinda gotta take away from your social life for a second. Like, you really gotta, every second you have to either be working on this, studying for this, or volunteering here. Like, you don't have all that free time in the world, but I've learned from other cohorts that the very first semester of the program is the hardest by far. Out of all
Hmm.
4 semesters, this is the hardest one. So, which makes sense because, you weed people out. It's one of those things where, as a sport management major in the undergrad, I wouldn't necessarily you can coast through it, but you could definitely there's some people that just kinda get by, but this is one of those things where you cannot just do that. You have to be very dedicated and, really, um, diligent in doing this work.
And I don't think it's really like scary for people to learn that because, in athletics, like having a career in athletics is something that is very jam packed, 24
Mhm.
7 working time management. So it's something that the professors tell, everyone in undergrad anyway. So it shouldn't be like a shock to anyone that does want to join the master's program. So for you, outside of just class in athletics, take me through some of the experiences that you've gotten so far at CMU. Obviously, I know that you've been with the women's basketball team since I've known you. So, I mean, you could talk about that as well. Like, how are some experiences that you've had?
Yeah, so this is my 3rd season with the team. Um, as you probably know, we had a coaching change this last,
Yeah, I was actually going to
season.
ask about how that's been with the change of everything.
Um, so, okay, my first 2 seasons, loved everything about it. Like, it was one of those things where after the very first practice that I went to, I was like, "This is what I wanna do." Like, it was, it's something that you don't always see all the time. Like, people you usually have to, like, try this, try that, see what they like, but it was just,
Uh huh. Just
kind of
fell in
a
love with it right away.
yeah, so even though we kinda had some unfortunate seasons, like, regardless of that, I loved the staff, I loved all the girls, like, I loved even though it was, like, grunt work and I was at the bottom of the food chain, whatever, I still felt, like, super important there and just I loved everything about it. And then when the coaching change happened, obviously I was sad because you know, grew a really strong relationship with all of them, but I benefited in a couple ways because one, it kind of showed me what athletics is about. I mean, coaching changes happen every season. Like
Yeah,
it's not
totally.
um, and it also kind of showed me like in sports, like it's not like you're a teacher or a doctor and you have that job security. Like so when the head coach was let go, like that means her staff is let go as well.
Hmm.
So like my boss, the Dobo, Jared, he, greatest like he was so good at his job. Um, but when the head coach gets let go, then kind of basically how it works is he's let go too. So it's not always about like, oh, if I'm doing my job right, then I'll be fine. Not necessarily.
Right.
You don't have that security, like I said. So I learned that about sports in that process. And then the other way I benefited from it was, although they all dispersed and whatnot, now I have 4 or 5 different connections all over the country. Like
Right. Yeah.
Jared's at Kentucky now. Heather's at Notre Dame. So it was like I said, it was sad, but you know, kind of like how everything works out in athletics. But um, now that the new coaching staff has come, I also love them a lot. They're super cool. They've really, I think they've transitioned pretty well. We've got a few new girls also. So I'm excited to see how the season goes. It's kind of just learning new ways and also like me being the only one who's kind of been here when they came, like understanding of how a lot of things work here at SMU. It was kind of cool because they were actually coming to me like, "Hey, how does this work?" or
Oh,
"How do you
okay.
guys usually do this?" So that's been pretty cool, and I've taken a really big leadership role in terms of the manager. So I'm considered the head manager, and I've really tried to see what I can do with our other managers, working together so that way it was a smooth transition with the change. Um, but I love it, and Last year, I had the opportunity to organize the Hoops for Hunger food drive event that we do yearly, and I'm doing that again this year. So, just like I don't know, something like that would never have been able to do anywhere else. Like
Uh-huh.
that's what I tell everybody about the program and just Central in general is, if you're at MSU or Michigan or whatever, like they would never let me do something like run a whole like tradition that they do as a sophomore in college. You know what I mean? Like
Right,
they
yeah.
have full grown men people that are doing that. Another example, and this kind of ties in the grad program too, is for the one class I talked about, you have to do volunteer hours.
Mhm.
Well, I had gone to a volleyball game to, go volunteer, and I'd asked Jack, okay, what do you need me to do? And he was like, our replay guy is out. You want to do the replay? And I was like, never done that before, but sure. And like I said, if I was at MSU or something like that, they would have never let some person who's one an undergrad and two never done it before. So just like stuff like that, like you don't get those experiences everywhere. And I think you can agree that CMU is very like student based. I mean, a giant chunk of our athletic department is run by students.
I was just gonna say that. I mean, like, cause I work in multimedia, and we have at least like 30 students that work there. It's just a couple of full-time staffers, and
Yeah,
obviously with the operations as well, it's and facilities, like it's the same way. There's so many students that are involved with just a few full-time staff members. So and those people are even young. So it's
right.
run by the students are a huge part of the athletics program. And if you are in sport management, like get involved. Like they want you to be
Mhm.
involved. So
Yeah.
I definitely like that advice from you.
Plus, it's like it's a free way to like see what you like. Like it's kind of you don't have to completely commit yourself like it's a full-time job and now you're stuck for a whole year or whatever it is. You try things out, volunteer, and if you like it, you like it. If you don't, then try something else. So it's super
Yeah.
cool.
So you talked about how like you fell in love with being the manager with the women's basketball team right away. Like what would you say is your favorite part about is it just like the basketball aspect, like working in basketball? Is it building relationships with people? Like what do you enjoy most about doing that?
Yeah, so one thing is like a reason why I don't really have any interest in working in like a department's administration is because I like being a part of a team. I like that team aspect, but I also didn't have any interest in being a coach because that's a lot of weight on your shoulders that
Yeah.
I
It's a
don't know.
different thing for sure.
Yeah, so I still like the administrative side. So like basically what I'm trying to get at is I like the operation side. So that's kind of what I want to do is basketball operations. So that a lot of that is juggling a lot of things at once. And I think the program, me doing the accelerated program is really going to prepare me for that because there's so many things going on all the time. And that's exactly what's happening when you're a Dobo. So just just another way that shows that how this program prepares you for after you graduate. But yeah, I like the team aspect, but I like the behind the scenes stuff as well. So I don't need to be the face of the team, but I also like to be a part of it. So that's kind of where I've been leaning at.
Okay, yeah, I definitely like that. I was looking at your LinkedIn earlier, and I saw that this summer you worked at the United Shore Pro Baseball League.
Mhm.
Take me through that. Like, what was that experience like?
Yeah, so actually, I had to do my internship that Adler requires, and I was gonna be doing it with the basketball team this summer, but then the whole coaching change happened, so it was kind of like scramble for a job, which again was another, kind of a real world experience that happens a lot. Um, and the USPBL is actually like 5 minutes from my house, so it was
Oh, okay.
convenient. And for those that have ever worked in minor league baseball, you'll get those hours because I needed 400 of them. So 40 hours a week for 10 weeks, it was a lot, but definitely learned that baseball is not for me. And I'm not gonna lie, I definitely went into it knowing that was probably gonna be the case, but I needed the internship and it was kind of a whole different spectrum from basketball, so I was like, it can't hurt to do. Um, but I definitely it's very chaotic, which is a lot in a lot of sports. It's about chaos. So that's one reason why I recommend if you're trying to figure out what you want to do, at least trying to work in minor league baseball for a little bit. It's very unorganized, so
Yeah.
um, it's similar to CMU. They rely on their interns to do a lot of things that you wouldn't like really think you would should be allowed to do. Um, but one of my biggest takeaways from this league specifically was in my job. I was a guest. It was guest services intern. So basically, I was in charge of like people who rented out patios or suites or VIP stuff, things like that. And I did a lot of like guest interaction. So taking pictures of them in the suite, setting that up, a lot of problem solving because people that go to baseball or minor league baseball in general, they always got some issue. So thinking on your feet and learning how to problem solve without going to ask my boss what I should do, kind of a thing.
Hmm.
Um, and I was grateful for that because working with the team, I don't really interact with guests or fans all that much. So like doing this internship with the baseball league really strengthened that skill of mine. So I was glad I did it.
Yeah, I think that was it, and it's a quote that I heard not too long ago was like, "I would rather regret doing something than regret not doing something." And I feel
Yeah.
like that is a
Yeah.
good that applies to athletics a lot because, like you said, you learn that baseball is not for you, but like now you know
Mhm,
it's better to learn that now than in 5 years where you could that could be a
mhm.
future career for you that you wouldn't have liked,
Yeah.
So
And I know that like I said, I was 40 hours, which is pretty low for sports, honestly. It's
right.
usually up to 80, but for interns, like learning about, if that's what they want to do, I actually know someone who also goes to CMU who did the same internship, and he was like, "No, I can't do these hours. I don't like not having free weekends. I don't like, the late nights kind of a thing." And he learned that this is not for him, and I think that was like the greatest experience he could have had, realizing not wasting, a whole year like I said, figuring it out, but he just, a few weeks, okay, I'll try it out and yeah, so it definitely taught me hours, even though I had a good understanding of what that is, and I
Hmm.
think that's one reason why I'm so passionate about working in sports because I don't mind those 80-hour weeks. Like to me, it's like, well, what else would I be doing?
Right.
So that's how that experience was
And
for
you're
me.
in sports too, which is what we all want
Yeah,
to be a part of. So,
right.
so obviously, like we've talked about some advice to people that might want to join the grad program and stuff like that, or the master's program. But what would you just give advice to students maybe that just joined the undergrad sport management program, maybe a freshman just this fall?
Mhm.
Like, what would your biggest piece of advice be to them?
We kind of touched on a little bit. I know a lot of students kind of go in like, okay, if I get my degree, that'll be fine. And they're gonna hear it a million times. Get connections, get experience, but like that's really what you need to do. Um, to me, the connections start small and they grow bigger. So, like my biggest thing would just work in athletics. Facilities is always like looking for help.
Hmm.
Just go work in athletics. And then when you're doing that, so one, you're learning about if you like it or not. Two, you're experiencing different departments. But three, now you're learning, like, for example, if you were to work in facilities, now you're working with Jack Eno, who's like facilities director or
Yeah.
whatever his title is. But okay, so now you know him, and now you know the GAs in the department. And then once you get further into the program, so now you're a junior, senior, now that's when you've, oh, I want to work in the NFL. Okay, well now you can further your connections and go, look in who do I know in the pros, go look at alumni. So for me, since I worked like with Jared, for example, now he's at Kentucky. So now, I put myself in there and Jared at first was he was a good connection, but just another person at CMU. But now he's at Kentucky working with even bigger names. So now
Yeah.
he knows
A
those
huge
people.
basketball school too.
Yeah, so, and I know eventually he wants to be a head coach somewhere, and just because I knew him, at a small, just little central, and
Yep.
he could end up in the NBA at some point, now I'm gonna know him all the way. So just involving yourself and just knowing that it's not, you can't just coast your way through. And I know a lot of students see, oh, sports, like it'll be easy, like we're just gonna watch sports all day. Like that's not how
Yeah.
it is. And they definitely have like weeding out classes, which I think are super important because people realize that it's more than what they think. But yeah, just sticking to it and just volunteering, getting that experience is the biggest thing you can do.
Yeah, because we've mentioned, I mean, there's so many different departments in athletics that you could work in. You can
Mhm,
do facilities, multimedia,
mhm,
communications. Like there's so many different spots where if it doesn't work out here, guess what? They're super happy to guide you into the right direction into a different spot
mhm.
where you might find an interest at. So
Yeah, I don't think the ticketing office has probably ever said no to anybody. Like
exactly.
they'll probably take everybody.
hmm so before we wrap up today's episode, I do just want to ask you personally, like what is your goal for the future? Obviously, you talked about like basketball is something that you want to do in the future. Is that like the big goal for you? Is to keep working your way up in basketball?
Yeah, so as of now, the big goal is to be director of basketball operations within a Power Five program or the WNBA. That's kind of where I'm shooting right now, and just you know, and I know this is probably not something that you hear all the time, but I also have the option of being a sport management professor on the back burner. That's something that I would
Okay.
eventually kind of looked into a little more. Kind of one of those things where which a lot of like Dr. Blue, for example, he worked in athletic for like 25, 30 years, whatever,
hmm
and then went back, got his PhD, and then now he's a professor. So that's something that I would consider. Now, if I find myself in a position where I just absolutely love what I'm doing and I don't experience any burnout and I'm at a school or program or organization for 40 plus years, whatever it is, and that's what I'm doing. But I think I would also, as I let's say I find myself in a Dobo position at a school or organization, and within that I discovered jobs that I didn't even know existed.
True.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think possibilities are endless, but right now the goal is Dobo, Power Five, WNBA level.
I definitely think that the capability is for sure there with you.
Yeah.
Obviously, you're very accomplished so far. So, well, thank you so much, Ava, for joining me on today's episode. I thought this was a great conversation. It's the first time that I've had a current student on, so it's always
Oh,
great to
cool.
get different perspectives and everything. So, everyone, thank you for listening to episode 6 of the CMU Sport Management Podcast.